So I played a game a while ago called Death Collector. I don't think I would recommend this one. This runs into the same problem as a few other games I've played from the publisher. It just does not grab me for the vast majority of the story. So I finished it, but wasn't that invested. Also, it ended extremely abruptly. Not a very strong title. What is it about? This is a story about someone unsung, a secret person who arrives at the last moment to collect people's tales. With an invisible cloak and a magical knife, they carve the tongues out of the living and the dead, forcing them to tell what they otherwise would not. What did I like? I found the idea behind it all very interesting. So the entire ministry for which the player works is spinning this tale that there's a Grim Reaper. Meanwhile, it's actually a group of people going around gouging people's tongues, which for whatever reason talk after dying. At some point they can decay, some tongues refuse to talk, and in some situations they say complete nonsense. The job itself is focused on obviously collection of tales, hence the name, but it's especially about finding the most interesting and impactful ones. I, for example, discovered tongues actually, which were studied in the cloaks. Those invisibility cloaks the collectors use are, as it turns out, sentient living beings. Might not be the most intellectually advanced, but they are more than just clothing, and I ended up publishing this story and ended up giving cloaks rights. That's a very interesting idea. Also, there's something amusing about the fact that at the end of the day, the entire Grim Reaper shtick is reduced to bureaucracy. It's like you take something fantastical and turn it into the most boring, mundane routine. So a large portion of the game is taken up by petty squabbles in the office, entirely irrelevant and serving no one but amusing nonetheless. But that's about it. It's actually surprisingly short as far as the amount of events goes. There's quite a bit of text, but the things described are often just irrelevant information. In addition, as I have said, the game ended very abruptly, so I would criticize that. I have a suspicion that it might just be my playthrough ending like that. Maybe if I did something less controversial, just rocked less boats, it would go longer and I might get at least some parting words, but at the moment I have no plans to play it. Also, I would like to criticize the choices. So often the choices are: option 1, I'm horny, let me say whatever this person wants. Option 2 is point at them and laugh. Option 3 is sit quietly like a little bitch you are, and by the way, I'm not paraphrasing here. Or option 4, piss everyone off. It's basically always conflict and more conflict or being a total suck-up. I'm not exactly sure what the hell is up with that, but I tried to pick the most reasonable sounding options at the time. Which I assume moved me into the whole other problem, with skill checks. There are 4 bars where the player swings either left or right, so for example, compassion and indifference. You pick a compassionate choice, it goes up, you pick a different choice, blah blah blah, you get the idea. Stuff like that. I am almost purely in the middle, so the game just said fuck you and failed my checks when I picked some options. Like, for example, at the end of I had an option to help someone getting harassed by the god. Didn't do anything because the game refused to let me be brave. Basically, those 4 stats are extremely heavy-handed, and while I haven't lied a single time, it was always trying to be nice to everyone except Travis. The game refused to increase my compassion and principal stats. Extremely frustrating, because it blocks out roleplay unless you min-max, which kills any kind of fun in these kinds of games. This isn't Warframe or WoW Mythic Radiant to min-max everything. Very much pissed off about this. Aside from that, the tales of the tongues as well. Take the 3 people trapped in the cold. I had to harvest them and listen to all of them. One story was rich asshole being a rich asshole. A very interesting story indeed. Second story was a rich woman donating and working on bettering the society. Nice, but it's not exactly an interesting tale. Inspiring maybe, but not something to go around talking about. Now, the third one was a guy who lives in 100 lives. He was a treasure hunter, a pirate, and I think a whole slew of other things. It's a clear winner here. What happens after we harvest and listen to the tale? Was not picked. Moving on. Okay, it is realistic. In this depressing, oppressive world, every story would be forgotten for sure, but you sure as hell could have at least referenced this at least once again. Basically, every single harvest gives you someone's story, yet the game never goes back to it. It's like you are given a set of triggers. Every story can trigger an option in the future, which for me was the cloak rights, and once I went down that road, everything left Everything else left the story, and that was exclusively cloak rights. Comments about what cloaks do were added. How a player should feel about cloaks. Action, ammo cloak favorite. Okay, cool. But what about literally anything else? You're just supposed to ignore an entire world just because one thing seemed interesting. I feel like the author got tired of writing, so he went, it's a cloak route, whatever, write some cloak stuff and put a period at the end. And that was my ending. Holy lazy ass Batman. And speaking of laziness, there were at least 6 misspellings by chapter 3, which I noticed without paying too much attention. One asterisk line underscore break, which I assume is to separate the text, but it was in the middle of a block of text. I'm not exactly sure if the author didn't proofread enough or didn't feel like bothering to double check, but so far out of all the games I've played, this one had the highest rate of mistakes of this kind. Hell, I can't remember a single game which had a code leaking like that. Even in Interstellar Air Gap, I didn't notice any mistakes like that. And that game was hot garbage. Here it's definitely way better, but the author needed some time to nag him about polishing things before they are out. Oh, and another thing. It's a petty one, but I wanted to bang Sabine. These games always seem to be horny for whatever reason, like all the offers of choice in games, choice of game studios feel like everyone who plays text games is expecting sex all the time. And the one time I actually tried to get into her pants, no options. Besides the first few interactions with her, Sabine was nothing more than a story element and no longer a character to interact with at all. Past chapter 2, I remember one choice I could make which affected her. That's it. So, needless to say, I am horribly disappointed with her character interactions. Feels like all of them go nowhere. They're set up to be an important thing, you accumulate favors, you can get along with someone, but it just ends before you get anywhere or can even use those favors. It's all very, very disappointing. I probably sound angry and I'm a little bit, but the thing is, I somewhat started caring about the game. It definitely didn't win me over quickly, I played it for quite a bit before I got sucked in. But then it just ends. So yeah, I'm upset. Like, imagine you get interested in a girl, you date, and it seems to be going somewhere, and then she just calls and says, yep, nope, bye. Actually, now when I think about it, I kinda did that to a girl once. Well, crap. Karmic retribution? Could be. But it doesn't mean that the game is excused. It is not very good by any means, even if the idea is interesting, that atmosphere is pretty well done.